Hi, and welcome back to Rise Up Stories podcast. My name is Vicky Ross, and I'm your host for today. And today I've got a lovely guest. But then again, every week I do, as you know. But today I've got Shelly J. Whitehead, who is a phenomenal relationship couples coach. She's an author of How to Mend a Broken Heart. She's about to launch another book, and she's all to do with getting over breakups, divorce, deaths, and also how to have very, very successful relationships. So we're going to talk some more with her later on. But today I want to talk about her rise up story, because that is what I love doing. So before I actually get Shelly to speak, I want to just give you a background, because we've got a very, very peculiar background of how we know each other. So formally, we actually met 2012, so, 14 years ago. Unofficially, we met about 45 years ago. So we were in Regent's Park. I got introduced to Shelly because somebody said, "Oh, you're South African and Shelly's South African. You've got to speak to Shelly." And we started chatting. And when we started getting deeper into our own stories, we realized that she and I went to the same high school in South Africa. We actually crossed each other on the quad, on the corridors, in assembly halls. We were in the same space for 1 year, because after that she moved to Pretoria. And what was interesting or funny or freaky or all of the above is we were saying, "Oh, do you remember this person?" And then she was saying, "And do you remember this person?" Because I was mentioning people that I know that she would know, and she of course knows them. And then because I'm Greek, she was going, "Oh, and do you remember Louisa? And do you remember this one?" And then she says, "And that beautiful girl that died tragically, Katja Makropoulos." And I just went pale and silent, and she looked at me like, "What?" And I said, "That was actually my sister." And she knew my sister. So it was just so bizarre. And needless to say, since then, there was undeniable bond between us. I don't know. There was obviously the common ground. But everybody, I'd like to introduce you to Shelly.
It is so lovely to be with you, Vicky. Vicky is my safe place, my funny place. She's one of my friends who truly makes me laugh from my belly. And she's also my challenging friend. Wherever I am in my life and spaces, I can rely on Vicky to question certain things I might say or do that raise and bring in another level of awareness.
Yeah.
And so we have a very special bond and a sacred space, a trusting space.
Yeah.
What is friendship if not all of those things and everything?
Honesty and truth. That you know that it's whatever truth is being said, it's said with love, and it's said to support and help. So, Shelly, of course, I know all your stories. All of them.
All of
The bad
them.
and the ugly. Wow, just about. But I'm really interested in the one, because what I love about Rise Up Stories is the pivoting moment where people just went, "No, this is not going to take me down." So tell us about your story. And of course, I'm going to interrupt you all over the place and ask you questions. But share with us that story, because you know what? There's somebody out there that will listen to your story and will be inspired to pick themselves up and to rise. And that's why I do this. This is why I love doing this. And this is why I love interviewing amazing people like yourself. So take us to your story.
Okay. So I'll give you a little bit of background, and then I'm going into the story of the day my life changed. But it must start with a background so the listeners can have a little bit of an understanding of where I come from, because it's relevant to that day. I come from diabolically awful early beginnings. My parents should not have been parents. And the one thing I'm very grateful for is that I've been a very different type of parent to my children. So I wanted to be exactly the opposite, and their lives to be exactly the opposite of what I experienced. emotionally immature parents, let's put it that way, and stuck in their own traumas, which impacted greatly on my brother and myself. Of course, if we don't have the awareness, excuse me, of how the past impacts the choices in the present, we continue to repeat these patterns.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my patterns were about choosing ridiculous relationships. Ridiculous
There's a surprise.
with people who were emotionally immature and weren't able to be physically and emotionally present and kind and generous in a space.
Yeah.
And they weren't open to growing. Gosh, it took a long time to discover that. And
you know, sometimes the reason we keep having the same, I call it an upgraded version of the same problem, that we keep doing that is because we're still trying to heal the original wound, which is the one that you had with your parents.
And this is called the core wound.
Yeah.
It's in relationship that we're wounded. And the magical thing is it's also in relationship that we heal.
Yeah.
So we can do a lot of personal development work, of which I've done tons of, 6 years of couples training. I have 2 coaching qualifications. The first one I did 20 years ago, and then I embarked on becoming a transpersonal coach, which is everything beyond the ego.
Yeah.
And hypnotherapy training and NLP training and this course and that course. But I have found that my greatest healing has come in being in relationship and
100%.
choosing differently. So, when I have people who tell me about their years of study and their years of personal development, while that is so beneficial to raise awareness, it's how we show up differently in relationships and how we can choose a partner who's open to helping heal those core wounds, not to perpetuate them.
Yeah, otherwise you've just got a lot of theory and you've got no actual behavioral change inwards. So carry on with your story.
So show me your relationships and I'll tell you about your life.
Yes.
I've been bereaved. First husband died. I've been dumped. I've been divorced. I understand betrayal from all sides.
Yeah.
I'm going to take you, let's fast forward to the ending of marriage number 2, being dumped, which found me in a very dark space for 3 months. I turned into one of my clients because I work with individuals and I work with couples.
Yeah.
And when we hit that ground zero, you can't go any lower. And a relationship has died, or if someone in your life that you really value and love dies, takes us to that same place of deep grief.
Yeah.
And we need to work through the grief. And there I was, 3 months of desperate work, no sleep, can't eat, came out of it very thin. And with some resilience, because the one thing I do have is resilience, but a newfound belief that if I could get through that, I can get through anything.
That's it.
And I remember saying to my mother-in-law, who is still my mother-in-law, it's my late husband's mum. She's like my mother, and we're very close. She came to stay with me for 6 weeks in my ground zero operation. And I remember saying to her that what I felt I was going through, it was very insensitive of me because she had lost her son. And just said, I call her Gran. And I said, Gran, this is worse for me than Simon's death. Only after that, expression did I realize what I'd said. But it truly was, because when someone is still living and you are in a space of disconnection, desperately wanting connection, they've departed from connection. And out of that, my book, Healing Your Heartbreak, 28 Days to Transformation, was born. So 6 months later, in the very space I'm sitting and talking to you in now, which is my living room, which is large, we can fit in a group of 12 individuals and the facilitator, and a very dear girlfriend of mine that I did a lot of couples training with, Sue and Jens, was here, facilitating a training. I was part of the group of coaches and therapists attending. And part of the process was to get up and to walk around the room and to meet everyone's eyes with a declaration. And of course, I stood up, and the first person to meet my eyes was a man called Brett. And I said, and this is going to resonate with you, Vicky, I said, I will never, ever, ever. And I stopped and I stepped back 2 paces. And this was my big rise up moment. And then I stepped forward again. Instead of going into the negative of what I will never, ever, ever do, I went into the positive and I said, I will always, always, always ask for what I want and need.
Love that. I love that.
So I met every therapist's eyes in the group as I walked around the circle. Because in my life and in my teachings, everything is about seasons and cycles. And I circled the group. In my state of winter, which is the grounding in the sense of self. Mm-hmm. It's the first place I go in everything that I do, grounding in our sense of self. And in the deep connection to myself, I said, I will always, always, always ask for what I want and need. Because when we disconnect from the essence of ourselves to be something that we think is acceptable for the other, so that we can be pleasing to the other, so that we can always be loved,
yes,
we've disconnected from the core essence, the connection to self.
And the thing is, when we do that disconnection, that's when the love with ourselves stops, which is why we so desperately need it from other people. And it's interesting when I work with people, how the idea of loving self is so odd, weird, uncomfortable, because they see it as vanity, they see it as deserving, I'm not good enough, or it's too vain to love myself. We are not taught as humans to be kind and loving to ourselves first.
I would say, in essence, what you've just said there has been my very, very deepest work, my deepest dives into very different therapies over the last 10 years that I have done to come to this place of loving myself. And I have been brave and stepped into things that I would never have thought of before, to experience this very deep sense of knowing, connecting to, and loving myself. And it's not an easy journey. And in order to do this, there's the conventional wisdom out there, but at a very visceral, somatic experience of what I have done. It has led me to detach from all outcome, all judgment, and to let go of what I fear losing, to embrace the essence of, I can feel what I feel without turning away from it.
Because it is that idea that if I let go, if I surrender, if I release, then everything that validates me and gives me my identity is going to go, and then I don't know who I am. And then if I don't know who I am, who am I and what am I loving and what am I doing? But sadly, the opposite is true. And like you say, you have to get to that point where loving yourself is worth more than the fear of loss.
When we are there, we can stand on our own 2 feet without needing to be rescued. You can say no, and you can respect when others say no as well. And you can emotionally regulate. You can feel safe enough to be vulnerable. And you can recognize when an environment is genuinely unsafe. That takes a lot of practice.
Too much.
And when it comes to your values and standards, You know what matters most. I know what matters most to me, and I am living in complete alignment with it. And I tend to my own needs with the same care I would offer to someone I love. This is all about grounding. So
Shelly, sorry, I want you to expand a little bit more on that, because I think this is a very strong point, is that a lot of us, and I see this again, I hear it in the classrooms, retreats, people want somebody outside of themselves, usually a partner, and if not a partner and friends, to validate their self-worth, to validate their existence, to validate everything about them. And I think this is why that attachment to people is so scary to let go of, because if I let go of those people that tell me that I'm actually worthy, then I don't know if I am, because I don't know if I am. I don't know if I can love myself. I don't know if I'm good enough. So without those people and without my partner having to be everything, then what happens? You know, it's a really, really scary place to be.
Well, that's what death is.
Yes.
And that's what an ending is. Where it brings us back to this big question of who am I without you?
Yeah.
And an exercise I do with all of my clients is the I am. And I remember being on a workshop, public speaking workshop, with one of my mentors and teachers who's been profound. I did, many years of training with Heidi Schleifer, my couples training, and she has the most amazing TED talk about the bridge of connection. So for anyone listening, please go and look for Heidi Schleifer's TED talk on the bridge of connection. And we had to do this exercise of the fruitful I am. And I was working with Colin. We were working in pairs. He's a minister and such a wonderful man. And she said, you'll hit a point of like, I don't know. Colin and I didn't hit that point. You're filling a whole A4 page. So listeners, get your pen and paper, your A4 page, and fill it with all the things about I am about you. I'm a loving mother. I'm a great cook. I'm a dog owner who loves dogs. I'm an author who loves to share information to help people change their lives. I am whatever it might be. The things that people say about you, the things that you believe about yourself, and digging really deep. I'm a lover of nature. I'm a good walker. I'm a good hiker. I'm a good friend. I'm a great friend. All of this and all of that until you've filled the page, because it's so easy to do exactly the opposite. If we're looking for admiration in a relationship, we've got to be prepared to have the criticism too.
Yep.
And it's not necessarily criticism, but somebody else's wants and needs can be very triggering for individuals. Because if they have a want or a need, and we're working from a foundation of I'm not enough, or I don't feel appreciated, or I fear being rejected and abandoned, it's going to affect our behavior and how we show up in relationships.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
When the partner expresses a need, and sometimes people do this mostly as a negative, you don't write, you don't call, you don't send flowers, as opposed to it makes me feel so happy when you stop and you buy me a bunch of flowers. I cannot begin to tell you how thrilled I am when you text me once a day to tell me you love me. Or when you call me just because you wanted to hear my voice. So phrasing things in the positive is an art form and a practice versus the negative. You don't, always, never.
Yes. Which everybody's experts at. They're all masters at doing that. So, Shelly, you told me your pivoting moment, but what is it? Something inside of you went, no, I will not. This is not happening to me.
Ever again.
Ever again.
And I will always, always ask for what I want to need, because
But what got you to that point? What made you realize in that moment?
In all of my relationships in the past, I didn't express my needs or wants. I was there to meet everybody else's needs and wants.
So you were just happy to be chosen.
I was happy to accept some crumbs to prove how worthy I was to be with, because as a little child, my role was to meet the needs of my parents.
Yeah.
I was with two emotionally immature human beings, and I ran around being the good girl, meeting needs. In fact, my new book, Love is a Skill, we're soon to publish.
Well, I can't wait.
Starts off with me on New Year's Day waking up in the space of incandescence. Now, Vicky, you're going to remember this, and you're going to remember that therapist friend Sharon, who was, connected to the group that we were affiliated to and still are affiliated to. And she could see my desperate state when the marriage ended. And she said to me, how can I support you? What do you need? And I said to her, can you please just call me every day to tell me I'm going to be okay?
Yeah.
And Sharon, in one of our calls, weeks in to this process of ground zero rediscovery, said to me, Shelly, can you just get angry? Do you see, anger was never really part of anything I was ever allowed to feel.
No, it's not. It's not.
I was never allowed to, no, exactly. And I was never allowed to express feelings, especially anger, in our family of origin. So I'd suppressed it. But the person I was dating that year, because you were at that beautiful birthday party that was a surprise for me, and lovely, lovely man. And he was a great lesson for me in my boundaries and in asking for what I wanted and needed. But it arose with me being incandescent with rage one morning. And there was something he'd done, and this anger arrived. And it was just after that we had this facilitation for therapists in the space, because that was my defining of boundaries, where I began, where I ended, where someone else began, where they ended, and what I wanted and needed.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized I had never asked. I had minimized myself in the past. I didn't want to be too much, because if I was too much, you can't love me. You will leave me.
This is what you experienced.
The rejection and the abandonment.
Yeah.
The child being made wrong, never being enough. As my mother once said to this little girl that was once me, you will never amount to anything. And yet, that resilience deep inside heard her words and the favoritism of my brother, whom I love very dearly, and became something that said, you tell me no, you tell me I can't, I'll show you how. You leave my life, I will hit ground zero. I will do grief really well. Vicky, I do grief really well.
Oh, you did. Excellent.
And I got 20 out of 10 for my grief state. And I will rise and I will make it work. I will create something so valuable from this that we will help people in a similar state to change their lives.
Yeah.
I will show you how you can rise.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think most people miss, which keeps them stuck? Because, I mean, I've got my opinion about what is missing, and this is the work that I do. But a lot of people, for instance, do what you and I have done. We go down a new rabbit hole. It's got a new neon sign. Come this way, we will solve your life. And you pay the money and you go in and you dig the hole and you go really, really deep and wonderful and you do all of that only to kind of come out and go, well, that kind of worked. I'm further, but I'm still trapped in that emotion. So I have my theories of what I do, but I'd love to hear what your theories are on how you help people, and what our listeners can listen to and hear something to sort of follow and try out, or maybe a different point of view.
Oh, so this starts with the disconnection from self. Because if we are truly disconnected from ourselves, we don't know what we want, but we go in search of something out there instead of coming back into what gives me true joy.
Yeah. Follow your passion.
And what gives me true joy? It could be planting pansies, baking muffins, sewing wedding dresses, doing garden design. I met with someone this morning who she's in my networking group, and quickly looked at my garden because I preferred it to my neighbor down the road. And the joy of being in nature and doing gardens, and her website is spectacular. Because she's truly connected to that joy inside of being a gardener and garden designer. And we don't need to be a designer. I mean, my garden is magical for me. And my greatest joy in the morning is being there with a cup of tea. And then my next joy is knowing that I'm going to be working with someone today. So already today, I've had a session. I'm telling you about my work because deeply connected to myself is all the experience and wisdom that's innately in me, but also the years of studying that enables me to work with anyone who's ready to change their relationships and who's struggling in a relationship. And I have that ability to help, but it brings me great joy.
You're just a natural at this. You're so good at this.
But it's also what I was trained to do from this difficult early beginning. So when we look at the big challenges that we've overcome, therein lies the magic. When we can truly connect to ourselves and we go, I love fixing cars, old cars, which I don't. I love vintage whatever. There are men who can do this, or motorbikes, or converting something into. My husband is an architect. You give him a challenging project on how to change space. He is in
heaven.
Just joy. Everybody has something that they love to do once they start connecting to themselves. They don't go looking out there. There's training and there's ways that can grow what they love. I was reading a book about someone who's a herbalist this morning in Canada. And she said when she was 8, she wanted to be a farmer. But when she was 12, she knew she wanted to be a witch.
I love it.
And I'm reading this book called Wild Witchcraft about this woman who is in this community of living on the land and lecturing at universities. And she's really a key person of influence in her field. She's not a weird, wacky, tattooed, crazy person, not grounded. If there's anything that can be grown and used to help and heal, she's the person you go to. And she says she's into conventional Western medicine, but this is somebody who knows how to cultivate land.
Yeah, I've always said, and I think it's a saying that I learned from Michael Neal, and I think it's a Michelangelo saying, that it's easier to do what you love than to do what you think you will succeed in. Or something like that. Because a lot of us will go, well, how on earth can I live as somebody who just is going to give herbal tinctures to everybody? How is that going to pay the bills? I met somebody, well, I haven't met them. I've been told about them. They've got, I think it's 3 Angora goats. They make an absolute pack from running retreats where they're teaching people how to knit, buy their wool. They've only got 3 goats. They make the goats. He teaches people how to knit. He's got a whole lot of knitting videos and things and tutorials on social media. And he makes an absolute killing and lives the life of his dreams. Now, if you say to somebody, well, you're good at knitting, go and make a living out of that, most people will go, that's not going to work. But that's because you don't think it will.
So here's something. Years ago, I was feeling a little dull. And for me to be creative, to be inspired and motivated, I would say are the feelings and states of being that are most important for me every single day. So each individual needs to look at, where do I feel creative, inspired, and motivated? What do I like to read? What am I going searching for? And I've just lost my train of thought there. Sorry.
Well, but on that, I will ask people, where do you spend your surplus money? Not the money for the... So when you've got extra money, where do you spend your money and where do you spend your surplus time? There you'll see your passions.
It's definitely in all of that. It was actually a thought train that I was on and I completely just lost it.
But it goes back to what you said, which was your pivoting moment, is be brave to ask for what you want or what you need. So if you can allow yourself...
There was no way I was ever going to minimize myself again to fit into somebody's model of who I thought I should be. I clearly defined the I am that inspires, motivates, and where I feel most creative, what I want and I need in my life, and what my vision for my life looks like. Because when the old vision ends or we don't have one, we've got to look at the different life areas, our physical and emotional health, a special relationship that we want with a special someone, our career, our finances, our personal development. I'm working with a client who loves rock climbing. She is so active. Single mum of a little boy. Her relationship ended. But she's defined her home is important to her. These activities, the physical activity, the friends and the family, the people we surround ourselves with, and the feelings and the emotions, states of being that are most important for us to feel every single day. And when we can define that, we can start looking at the ways to, that's where my thought was going on creativity. Years ago, Elizabeth Gilbert, who's one of my favorite authors, was running a little workshop. I think it was on Udemy on creativity. And there was something that she said there that just rang so true. People were wanting to change their jobs to, from being an accountant to being a caterer to whatever. And she said, look, the one thing I know in life, she's always learned, you got to have a job. You got to have something that brings in money. Yeah. And it may not be your favorite thing to do in the world, but we need to have certainty in our lives. So there's the job that brings in money. And from there, we can go on to the career or the vocation. I'm just blessed that what I do is my vocation. I was born to do this. If I wasn't, and I was in advertising before, and I loved that. I love working with people and conceptualizing and then handing over the final product. So if I wasn't doing what I was doing, but I needed to bring in income, I would have a job that maybe wouldn't be my most inspired and motivated thing, but I know it couldn't be admin-based. It would have to be with people.
Yeah.
So we've got to have a job that brings in money. And on the other side, there are things that we love to do. Even if reading is one of them and, reading about certain things. Filling a day, and I have an intention every single day. What is my intention for today? Why is it my intention? How am I going to implement it? And at the end of the day, looking at how I accomplished it, what could have been better? Looking at all those interactions and analyzing them, and then setting the intention for the next day.
I tell you, for me, one of the things when I think about my day and my intentions, and it's now easy, but it used to be something quite difficult for me to do, was to kind of say, oh, I want to do some sewing today. Oh, but this and this and this is more important. And I would then have to give myself permission to drop something that is important in my mind, and it could be like, oh, you got to do your washing or whatever. That's important. That has to be done. It's a should kind of thing, a have to kind of thing. Whereas actually, all I wanted to do was just be creative and sew and do all of that. And I started just allowing myself, not every day, not all day, but allowing myself moments in the day, moments in the week, to build a puzzle, to do some painting, to do some sewing, and give myself that permission. And in the beginning, I used to feel a bit guilty and I used to feel a bit uncomfortable because I should be doing something else that is more important. And I just thought, no, I love myself to do what I want. And that's why I love what you said with your story, that I will always do and ask for what I need and what I want. And I think it's also allow yourself, give yourself permission to do what you need and what you want. That is feeding your soul and feeding your heart.
But you can only do that if you're connected to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thematically.
Yeah.
It took me a very, very long time to get there.
Me too. I had a lot of theory and I used to get so frustrated. It used to irritate the hell out of me that theoretically I could see what had caused the issues in my life. I could see what the wounds were, what the reactions were, who created them, why they created them, what happened to them, and oh wow, how damaged they were, and that's why they damaged me. It was all there, but inside, the pain was still there.
And it's finding ways to change that pattern. For me, it's been some very, very deep out there therapeutic work with very trusted individuals and doing things that I would never have done before.
Yeah.
I've dived into the world of psychedelics therapeutically to do this.
Yeah.
I love Joe Dispenza's work because it's always that reminder of living forward, not backward.
Yeah.
And I practice that. And surrounding myself with nourishing relationships. And my husband now says to me, but you always know what you want and need. And I go, years of practice, what I want to eat. What do I want to do? And this is my year. I give every year a title. It's a whole journey for me. That year in my book, This Love is a Skill, the year of incandescence. And Vicky, you were on that journey with me. Because 2014 was my year of incandescence.
Yeah.
And this is my year of wild.
Nice. Ooh.
And wild is my natural state. When we come back into the natural state of being, it's because of these two things. And after doing a lot of, body work and therapy, particularly with my one therapist, Elia, who's been a marvelous teacher for me. She's a biodynamic psychotherapist, amongst many other things. In connection to myself. My authenticity and my self-worth are it's a completely different state and space to the woman I was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, even 5 years ago, even 2 years ago. And there's deep integrity that runs through that. Yeah. I had someone try and challenge this recently, someone who was part of my team, about integrity. And I'm so in alignment with my integrity and my authenticity and my self-worth. I'm not movable on that.
Good. Because the frustration, and I know that we all have it for each other, is that when I look at you, right from the day that I met you and we became friends and all that, I always saw a very capable, very compassionate, very skilled, talented human being that didn't see herself in that way and behaved in a different way.
Yeah, but the people pleasing.
And I was like, oh, for goodness sake. I wanted to slap you sometimes.
And, watching, ridiculous relationships.
Yes.
Because you were there, you observed two of them. In fact, you were the friend who came to me at one of my birthday parties and said, what are you doing did use different languaging. And I looked at you rather sheepishly and I told you what I was doing, which we will not mention on this program. But I feel, and I mean, you as my trusted friend, you know, authentically know the space that I'm in. And when I say, you know, my authenticity and my self-worth
absolutely.
are
Absolutely.
very aligned. And this is where I've noticed the big shifts. You know, really, I'm in such a beautiful marriage. Oh, not without challenges and obstacles.
No. You see, this is where people get it wrong. They think because you've got a beautiful marriage, it never has an obstacle. There's never a disagreement or an argument or, you know, that is not what any relationship, even your relationship with self, is about. It's about how wounded do you feel? How entitled do you feel? How hurt do you feel by the interaction? Or is it something that you're going, oh, okay, so you see it differently. You want something else. I'm still okay. You're still okay. We're both okay.
Well, it's allowing for the difference, but also to be truly seen and heard.
Mm-hmm.
Not that there doesn't, you know, we don't have defensiveness or, you know, challenge in the space, but this is what I need and this is what I'm asking for. How do we support one another? Yeah. And it's a challenge, but this is where a relationship needs to grow, where the individuals need to grow. And when you have someone who's willing to grow with you, as uncomfortable as it can be at times, there's the magic. I can't be in a relationship with someone who's growth resistant and who is exiting a space because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Or doesn't want to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, that's an exit. Because also a lot of people don't want to talk about it because they don't have the skills. That's why I work with couples.
And also because they feel wounded.
Yeah. I'm flying to New York to work with a couple who've been together, you know, over 10 years, to work with them next week. And, you know, this is a lot of what I do. Not just the couples work, a lot of individual work, but I fly around now to work with individuals who can't easily get here. I'm going to work in the space with them to help them to truly see and hear one another, to facilitate that change. And it's again detaching from the outcome, because the process itself is the magic that facilitates whatever needs to happen in that space between two individuals. So not every relationship is meant to stay together.
No.
Not every relationship has what it takes to move into a future, but every individual has the capacity to learn to be present, because presence is where you can give your full attention to what's in front of you without rehearsing or performing. You are completely present. Your curiosity and your eye contact and anything else belongs back in your own world.
Yeah.
And it's in that space that I get people to see one another and hear one another completely differently. What's underneath a lot of change is fear.
Always. Fear is the key one, you know, and it manifests in different shapes and forms, but it's all forms of fear. Shelly, we could talk to you forever, and I definitely do want you to come back and for us to talk a little bit more specifically about, you know, relationships and things like that. But I'm going to have more information about you in the show notes. So if anybody wants to go and look you up and maybe do some work with you or buy your book or do your magic, they can reach you easily. So thank you so much, my beautiful friend. I really, really enjoyed.
So lovely to be with you. So lovely to be with you. Always, always.
Right. Thank you, everybody. If this sounded like, I need to share this with someone, somebody needs to listen to this story, please share the podcast. Also subscribe, follow, so that you will be notified when we have another program. And if you want to join my community, I've got a beautiful membership community, and we do all things personal development with themed months and lessons that I provide. So if you want to join that, again, links in the notes. And for the rest, here's to your success until the next podcast. And thank you for listening.